Now, for more on the Red Sea saga, I'm joined by Deakin University Professor Greg Barton. Greg, I want to put the politics aside here and try and get a perspective on why do you think the government made the call they did?
Good to be with you, Steve. Look, the answer is we don't really know. And in a sense, the government can't really say it out loud, at least some of the reasons, because the suspicion is that part of the calculation may be resourcing. The threat posed by the Houthis, this is a 100,000 strong militia, very sophisticated, very ruthless. They've been firing missiles literally, in the case of Saudi Arabia, for years into Saudi Arabia and Israel. So they can fire missiles over 1,000 kilometres, and they have very lethal force in the Red Sea, which is their neighbourhood. We only have 3 air warfare destroyers, the Hobart Class vessels. Are considered the best match for defending that sort of aerial threat. They're loaded up with sophisticated $1 million missiles, but firing $1 million missiles at drones, possibly costing thousands of dollars, is an asymmetrical disadvantage, actually. And the fact we only have 3 of these vessels means sending one impacts on the duty cycle for the other 2, because often with ships you've got to have one in port for repairs and maintenance. So the cupboard's a bit bare. We're stretched thin. I don't know that that's the reason for the decision, but it's got to be a factor. And if you're in government, saying that out loud isn't a really wise thing. You don't want to be speaking about any shortage of hardware. But so Richard Marles is in a difficult position. He's got to sort of put a positive face on, but perhaps behind the scenes, and this is not party political, for decades we haven't been building up our navy to the needs that we have of this current time.
Barnaby made a very good point there, I think, Greg, where he said that we're not going to defend something that is not pivotal to Australia. We're talking about a region of the world where a lot of our trade that ends up particularly in the Middle East and Europe. And in the Middle East, I'm thinking about, perhaps live sheep export, goats and all of the above. It goes through that Red Sea area and through the Suez Canal. And so we're protecting our own export trade from these Houthi rebels, aren't we?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. There's, 1/8 of world trade roughly goes through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. So it goes past that Bab el-Mandab choke point, which the Houthis are able to effectively threaten at the moment. So 1/8 of world trade, that's a pretty substantial thing. And of course, it's 1/8 of global trade, but for us, it's a larger proportion. It may be a long way from our territory, but it's very immediate in terms of our national interest.
You and I don't have a lot of regard for the Global Times, that Chinese newspaper, which is pretty much a propaganda sheet. But I note that they were suggesting that China is celebrating, that they're praising Australia for distancing itself from the US. I mean, that would not be a good look. China had no influence on the decision, but they've jumped on board. I mean, seriously, have a listen to what Marles said about that.
Whatever is being said there is whatever's being said, but it has absolutely no relationship to the decisions that we make. And I can tell you that our consultations are with a lot of countries. It ain't with China. Our consultations are with the United States first and foremost, and with our like-minded partners.
We seem, Greg, to be treading very gingerly around our issue and our relationship with the Chinese, don't we?
Yeah, it's not just a question of diplomacy, Steve. It's also a question, we don't want to speak about our weaknesses that we can't easily remedy quickly. So I understand that the Defence Minister doesn't want to say that, look, we've got a problem with the resourcing, so that's why we're not wanting to commit a vessel. The Global Times, of course, is a propaganda piece. Absolutely, it's sort of very consistent. So in a sense, it's kind of useful to keep an eye on the Global Times because it does tell us something about what Beijing wants to tell the world. Of course, one of the ironies here, Steve, is that of that 1/8 of global trade passing through the Red Sea, quite a lot goes on to China and quite a lot is Chinese vessels. A month ago, we had a vessel hijacked by the Houthis. Unfortunately, that vessel is still in their control with a 25-member international crew. It wouldn't be at all surprising if one of the next victims of the Houthi attacks, and let's hope this is not the case, is a Chinese vessel. That would really change things. So, there's wheels within wheels here. I think China is actually very concerned because the Red Sea passage is very important to them, and they've got a vulnerability there. So I do think we need to think carefully about what we communicate. But this is, at the end of the day, this is a reminder that we don't have the force strength we'd like to have with naval assets, whether we're talking about threats in our immediate region, the Asia Pacific, or we're talking about trade routes like this that are vital to us.